Everyone, Joe Waxman here, the mediocre astrologer. Man, he's okay. Hope you guys are doing okay. All right. So today I want to do a pretty epic video on Mars Pluto hard aspects. So we're going to look at a lot of charts. I'm going to try and not stay too long on any one of them because there's a lot to get through. But so generally, what it's Mars and Pluto combinations. Recently did Mars and Saturn, and so now we're doing Mars and Pluto. Similar, being that they're both malefics. You know, Mars is a malefic, Pluto is considered malefic. I mean, malefic is a yeah, I mean it's a relative term, but so Mars is male aggression, male masculinity, right? It's not male, masculine energy, aggression, fighting, passion, sex drive, physicality, doing things, mechanical ability, actually physical stuff, whether it's working with your hands or fighting or sex or exercise, just doing initiating action as well. Does have passion. It rules Scorpio and Aries, and along with Pluto also rules Scorpio, so there's some kinship there, right? Um, but yeah, Mars is the that um, aggressive, passionate, masculine type energy. Um, Pluto is much more psychological. So both Mars and Pluto rule Scorpio, co-rule it, right? Um, but Pluto is less physical, more psychological. It's deeply obsessive, deeply thinking, right? Deeply penetrating into this is more like the mental side of Scorpio, right? The plotting side, the planning side, the strategic side. Pluto can be very strategic. Pluto can be a mastermind, right? Pluto wants to be a mastermind. Pluto wants to control. It wants power over others. It wants to manipulate. It wants to psychologize people, get inside their head and tinker. It wants to figure people out better than they understand themselves, right? That's like a true Plutonian kind of archetype, is understanding others better than they understand themselves. Then you can manipulate them, right, for better or worse. I always say, like, if it's for the better, then you can be like a psychologist or a therapist or somebody who helps people, right? You have a strong Pluto, you can lift them up because you understand them better than they understand themselves, so you can enlighten them, right? On the negative side, it can be used to manipulate and control, and like puppet master, right? Pluto's that kind of energy. You see it a lot in like war strategists, military strategists, chess masters, that type of people who really need to see the whole board, right? Whether it's on a world scale or just like a chessboard, and they need to mastermind the whole thing. They need to understand the whole thing, right? And just be like, at least one step ahead of their competitor, maybe several steps, right? Thinking in that kind of deep, strategic, penetrating way. Um, Pluto is very destructive. Like when Pluto's strong in a chart, these people can have very strong destructive tendencies: drugs, alcohol, sex, crime, power over others, right? But very deep penetrating thinking. Um, Astrological, definitely. I mean, even though Uranus is like the main archetype of astrology, Pluto's very strong in astrology, mostly because of its ability to understand psychology, its ability to understand other people's mind and thinking and manipulate them and control them. It can be very jealous and want to own, right, others. Um, What else? Abuse is often a Plutonic theme because of that. So if you see a Pluto that's looks, it's in a bad position, not bad position, but like fourth house, and it's maybe there's some hard aspects to it that could indicate abuse, right? Somebody sexual abuse, or just in general, it depends on what sign and house it's in. But Pluto can be very abusive, right? It's a very heavy duty kind of planet. It rules transformations, deep transformations, right? So things that are changing very fundamentally, right, on a fundamental level from over time. They're completely transforming, transmuting. It rules death and rebirth. So yeah. So Interesting combination. When you put the two together in hard aspect, these people are deeply driven, right? Because Mars is the motivation, the energy, the initiation, right? It's the physicality of doing things, right? But Pluto is that deep obsessive quality. So when you put these two together, they can be very, very obsessed with action, with motivation, with doing things, right? Or depends on whether it's conjunct or square or inconjunct. We're going to look at all three of those, right? But extremely driven people, to achieve, to succeed, to their Mars is just on overdrive, right? Because of this. If we're comparing Mars and Saturn to Mars and Pluto, Mars and Saturn is more restricted. Mars and Saturn is more like a loaded gun. It's like Mars is under pressure because of Saturn restricts it, right? But then when it releases, it's like, but Pluto is a little bit different. Pluto with Mars is just so much um, um, desire, right? The desire is so intense with Mars and Pluto that it's like the motivation, the desire, and it's deeply destructive. It's like going to go like to the nth degree, and the limitation is not there the way it is with Mars and Saturn. So you're not going to see the same level of control. There might be psychological, because of the psychology, the strategy, there could be it might not appear that way always, right? Like they might strategically cover that side of themselves up because they know nobody's going to be like nobody's going to really respond well to their obsessive desire for things, right? That's not a very nice quality for somebody to exhibit in public. You go on the public stage and you're like, I want all the money and all the power. It's like psychopath, okay. Jesus, right? um anyway, let's look at some examples to get a better idea. I think that's basically like the summary. So we get a better idea if we look at actual people. And I have a whole list, right? So we're gonna move it through it quickly. So we're starting with Drake. Drake, the entertainer. Just Drake. Really nice. They call it a mystic rectangle, although there's nothing mystic. It's just two trines and two sextiles here, but it's a very nice one. But it's so we're getting yeah, Mars square Pluto with Drake. Here. He's got a whole Scorpio stellium. And then Mars is in Aquarius in the sixth house, so probably hardworking, kind of, Mars in Aquarius definitely going to add like the Aquarian brilliant, even though it's Mars is still intellectual, Mars still has a mind, even though it's very physical. So it's still going to have an elements of, Aquarian kind of brilliance, right? Square Pluto and Scorpio. And Mars is, I mean, Pluto and Scorpio is already in good dignity, but square to Mars, even though it's a square, Mars is still dignifying. It's dignifying this whole Scorpio stellium, right? By square. And the square is like adding the toughness, the kind of like hard work, struggle, whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's going to add a lot of depth and power and like strength and desire to Drake's work. And I don't know him that well, but I'm just saying. So we can just note it. You probably maybe some of you, if you know him better, you could probably make parallels to it that I can't. But there's a lot of people here, so we're just gonna keep going. Some I'll know a bit more about than others. Got 38 charts to work through. All right. So here we have Prince, the musician. All these musicians love their single names. Okay. Oh, this one's an inconjunct, right? And so that's unusual. Inconjuncts are when planets are inconjunct, they work together in funny ways, right? It can be like very intelligent, but like it's just different, and it's sort of competitive between the two. He's got his Mars and Aries and Pluto at the anaretic degree of Leo, conjunct the MC, but we could see this very intense kind of like driven passion with Prince. He was a very unique person. Mars is also his ascendant lord. And that's like, okay, the in conjunct with Pluto is bringing out a kind of, let's see, it is, it's actually on the sixth. If you count, there's two kinds of inconjuncts. You know, Mars would be eighth from Pluto, but Pluto's sixth from Mars. So you always have to check that to see which one's in the dominant. So Mars is actually in the dominant position of Pluto. They're both dominant planets, and this is an ascendant lord, right? But it's creating that um, if Mars is eighth from Pluto, then there's a lot of sexuality here in this Mars, which is his ascendant lord. Mars is already very sexual. Anyway, because it's eighth, so it's bringing in an eighth element. It's actually a yod here with the node. Anyway, really interesting. It reminds me of, Prince wore those ass chaps. He was always hypersexual, right? But that's partially Scorpio rising. But not all Scorpio risings are hypersexual. It depends on the person, right? And he's also a Gemini sun, Mercury. Prince. Pink. Not a fan of pink. Not a fan. But a lot of people are, obviously. Um, Mars, square Pluto. She's another one. Pluto conjuncted both her and Prince both have Pluto conjunct the MC. But she's got her Mars in Cancer. Um, let's see, Mars ruling the fourth. So parents, early childhood. And 11th. Interesting. I don't know what you know. Yeah, groups, networks. So Mars in Cancer is not in good dignity here. Um, Pluto in Libra, it's in the seventh. Um, just generally, let's see, fourth house. So issues with her parents. I mean, definitely. And 11th house, groups, networks. Seventh, eighth whole sign house. Um, definitely something going on with when she was young, with her parents, the way she grew up. And it's kind of like tied into the moon as well. So her mother, um, there feels like some sort of kind of abusive, violent sexuality, something going on in her childhood there. But just generally, this is gonna be a very driving aspect for her, motivating, driving, passionate, um, and makes Mars in Cancer. It gives her that uh, sort of wildness that she has. Mars square Cancer, Mars square Pluto. Let's keep that. Christina Aguilera. Some of these are more obvious than others, but I thought I'd throw them in there just because, I mean, maybe some people are just like, know like the intimate details of Christina Aguilera. I have no idea, but it's good to look anyway. Um, I know she's a singer. So Mars ruling her second house, Mars in Capricorn, it's exalted, and there's Pluto. It's yeah, square by 3 degrees. Pluto in Libra. Right? Yeah, I mean that's gonna just like make her voice like she's a she's obviously a singer, talented. Um, it's just gonna add depth, dimension, drive, passion to her singing ability, right? Um, Muhammad Ali. Now this one is a bit more obvious because it's very physical, right? Pluto and Leo in the 12th, Mars in Taurus. And let's see. Mars is ruling the fourth and the ninth. It's very interesting. Um, but it's very prominent, this Mars. It's in the ninth, but 10th whole sign house, close to the MC. And 12th, the 12th definitely for relating to um almost like a spiritual or psychic intuitive element in fighting, like he's getting cues from like his subconscious about fighting. It's similar to Bruce Lee. We're gonna see the same thing with Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is more, it's a little more obvious because he was into the martial arts, which do have like a spiritual element. But I think like Muhammad Ali was kind of drawing from the nether regions in his fighting, especially you can see Pluto in the 12th. Pluto in the 12th has a kind of sixth sense about things. Like I have Pluto in the 12th. I just like I know things. But yeah, this is very driven, very, very driven. And Muhammad Ali was like, he trained extremely hard. He'd say, like, I heard one thing like, he doesn't count push-ups. He only starts counting when it hurts, right? Stuff like that. Joe Biden, everyone's favorite president. Nah, just kidding. All right. Okay, this is not a really tight example, but Pluto is square Mars by I guess 5 degrees. So pretty loosely, but still it's like deeply driven. Like this Pluto is obsessing him about like his, dungeon diddling boys in the dungeon basement. I know it's like harsh, but he's doing. Listen, you don't go around sniffing and like grabbing women's breasts like your whole life and not be like a total creep in private. Just marrying his babysitter, like come on. Justin Bieber, Justin Beaver, um, Mars, Pluto by 3 degrees square. Pluto conjunct the ascendant. So Bieber is quite destructive, quite scorpionic, right? Quite powerful even. Does have this Aquarius vibe, which is nice. Probably adds a lot to his humor, right? Mars, Mercury, and Aquarius. Probably a very funny guy if he gets the chance to be, but very driven, right? And this Pluto stationary, this Jupiter stationary too. I hope Beaver is not too destructive and he grows up, becomes a mature person. Um, who knows? I don't know. A lot of these guys are like Illuminati, Satanists. They do horrible things. He might be one of them. I'm not just saying that because I like it or something. I don't like it. It's reality. Pluto in the 12th, and like my eighth, 12th house stuff sees beneath the veil. Like I just forget it. I see everything or a lot of things. All right, Kobe Beef Bryant. I don't know. I just gotta say stupid stuff. But anyway, he's got Mars and Pluto conjunct and Venus in Libra. And so Mars in Libra, and works really well for Kobe. He was obsessed. He was obsessed. Like you hear tons of stories about Kobe, like how he just had to outwork everyone, and if everyone was doing like 2 hours of practice, he would do 3 hours. I think like there was an interview I watched with another basketball player, and like he was playing against Kobe, and like he got in the gym and was practicing, and Kobe was already there. And then when he was done, Kobe was still practicing, and then like he confronted Kobe about it, and Kobe's like, I just wanted you to know that whatever you were willing to do, I was willing to do more to beat you, right? So that's the kind of thing, Mars Pluto obsession, right? Venus is here too. Venus actually makes it a lot better, because Venus also rules Libra, but Venus is like a softness. So Mars and Venus together can work really well because it's like less danger of like physical overexertion. Like Mars and Pluto on its own is not necessarily going to be extremely physical. It might be, but with the Venus, it helps that you're going to give like a fleshiness and like a softness or uh, um like water to an end, like cooling off something very hot, right? It's like hedging against this intensity with the nice, cool, soft Venus. Right? You can do a lot more with that. So yeah, Kobe Bryant is very obvious with Kobe. He's a great example. Jeff Buckley. What an interesting chart. And if you don't know who Jeff Buckley is, his father was Tim Buckley. His father died, I think suicide or as an accident. I'm not sure. Died young, was a musician. Jeff Buckley was exactly the same. Very talented musician, hauntingly beautiful voice, right? And then he died also, I think, drowning, right? So amazing. Uh, Not in a good way, but amazing talent and tragic. Um, Pluto, Mars, Uranus, and Virgo in the second. So this relates to his voice. And if you haven't heard him sing, listen to him. It's just deeply haunting and beautiful. And it's directly opposite Saturn and Chiron and Pisces, eighth. And I think he drowned. So Pisces. So I don't know, like Saturn doesn't really feel like drowning to me. Chiron neither, but Pisces definitely does. And then Pluto, Mars, Pluto. Right. And then Sun, Scorpio. Like, look at the Scorpio stellium. Sun, Venus, Mercury, Neptune, South Node, all in the fourth, right? And his father died young, obviously, right? So this is all very, very sad. But look at the the numbers, the degrees. It's like really tight. You're getting this trine, sextile, and opposition here. Um, so that's really interesting. And yeah, it shows up in his voice a lot. Dave Chappelle, everyone's favorite comedian. Um, Dave's funny as heck. Recently did not say some nice things about the Jews, but that's whatever. I mean, it's pretty common. I mean, it's like everyone's like down on the Jews right now because of Israel. They think Israeli Jews should just lay down and die, but that's another topic for another day. All right. Let's see here. Pluto, Venus, but Pluto in conjunct Mars. You're not really seeing it. I don't know why it's not showing it, but it's Pluto in conjunct Mars. Mars in conjunct Pluto. And so Pluto's in the sixth, Mars is in the eighth. Um, and let's see, Mars is ruling the second. So that has to do with his voice. This is very like his voice is very like deep and growly, gravelly. He also smokes cigarettes, so that's Venus, Pluto, love of destructive things, right? Very indulgent. It's in conjunct Pluto. Pluto's also ruling or Mars ruling the ninth, so it has to do with his philosophy and not necessarily his expression, although Venus is ruling the third house, so that is getting influenced, but his voice, and his appetites, right? Very destructive appetites. I mean, smoking alone. I don't know what else he does, but and Mars is in the second, but it's still ruling. It's still influencing the third cusp, so it's still playing into that. And then of course he's got the requisite Jupiter in Aquarius. That's not necessarily requisite, but a lot of comedians have Jupiter in Aquarius. It's the funny. It's the funny. It's where the funny comes from. The Aquarius, the Libra, sometimes Gemini, definitely. Also fire signs. Um, yeah, Mercury and Leo. Not too much fun. It's MC and Sag. But yeah, Mars Pluto in conjunct. It's definitely like I don't know. It's a little bit weird. It's a little harder to identify, but it still has that drive, the aggression, the passion. Share, share, and share alike. Mars, Pluto in the second. Okay, and she's another one, singer, right? She got that powerful voice, and she's got Saturn in the first, Saturn in poor dignity in Cancer, but it's like weird. It's like she never ages, and she's another one of these Illuminati, adrenochrome drinking. I mean, there's no way she could be like 70 whatever and look like 40, right? 45, something like that. It's ridiculous. What's she doing? Adrenochrome. Capricorn moon. But actually, this is mutual reception, right? Wow, look at that. Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, voice. That's obvious. Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton. Oh my gosh. Mars, Pluto. Mars, Pluto, Saturn. Ooh, square all this Scorpio. Do we need to really say anything? Yeah. Just look at Hillary's hit list. That's just enough said. You hear she's a holy terror behind the scenes. All right, Matt Damon, Mars, Pluto, Virgo. And so like when these actors play these roles, they don't have to play these roles, obviously. They can pick and choose what roles they accept or not accept. And they're not going to be chosen for a role that they don't fit in. It's just not going to work. It's bad typecast. It's bad casting, right? So anytime an actor plays a role of like a tough guy or this or that or the other, they're gonna have to have that energy. Well, look at this magnificent grand earth trine. He's so earthy, right? And then Scorpio as well, right? Very, very earthy, very practical. And Scorpio around his kite, full on kite. It's amazing. Yeah, well, he's very popular. And this is in the eighth house, right? So like comes down to it, like he's probably pretty tough, like pretty aggressive. Like if he seems like a really nice guy, I'm sure he is. But if you push him, he'll probably fight you, like physically, right? Like there's Mars and Pluto in Virgo is very aggressive, very tough, right? So he can play those roles too. Um, so Johnny Depp, Mars, Pluto in the second Virgo. Again, he's not a singer. Well, wait, does he sing? I don't know if he sings, but also this is for appearances too. He has the Uranus as well, but like Johnny Depp, he definitely has that like, grungy rocker, look with all those tattoos, and he plays in a rock band, right? And so that is this, second house influence. It's ruling the fourth, ninth. So philosophy. Also, like Johnny Depp has a major spending problem. Spends like way too much money. Mars, Uranus, Pluto, obsessively, right? Second house, resources, assets. So yeah. Robert Downey Jr. It's like same exact thing as Johnny Depp. Amazing. So yeah, they probably get together and just spend shitloads of money. But yeah. Um, I don't know anything about Robert Downey Jr. except he's Iron Man. So second house, the speech. Yeah, a lot of actors have second house stuff because it's like the image, the speech, the voice, right? The resources. You need that. Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon. He's a felon. Just kidding. Um, Mars, Pluto, Libra, seventh house. Yeah, almost eighth whole sign house. So here's his humor. Mercury, Uranus, right there. Nothing in Aquarius. Um, Jupiter in Pisces, almost exactly conjunct the ascendant from the 12th. But so like him as a person, it's also square the nodes. It's pretty intense. Oh, look at that grand um mutable cross. Okay, so yeah. I mean South Node Gemini, that's gonna be humorous as well. Right. Uh yeah, he's got the Gemini, he's got the Libra, no Aquarius, but Uranus. Okay. So, funny, a talk show guy. Um, Mars, Pluto. Yeah, I mean, there must be something very obsessive about him. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know enough. I don't, how many times I've watched Jimmy Fallon? Like zero. Don't really care. Sigmund Freud. All right. He's got the inconjunct. Where is it? Mars in conjunct Pluto by 1 degree. Both ruled by Venus. Venus is in Aries with North Node. But yeah, so Mars in Libra, it's not very strong, dignity wise, but it's his ascendant lord. That's interesting. And ruling the sixth. So the sixth house is very academic. Yeah, I mean it's daily grind, work, routines, things like that, but it's very academic as well. Um, and then Pluto almost in the seventh, right? It's close to the seventh cusp. So like, that's psychoanalyzing others. The inconjunct, right? Which is the, unequal relationship. So that actually makes a lot of sense for a psychologist, psychotherapist, right? Especially the originator, because it's not an equal relationship, it's an unequal relationship, right? And he developed the talk therapy where the client lays on the couch and they can't even see the therapist. That's an inconjunct, right? They can't even see each other. but there's a relationship there. And this is him. Here's the psychology. Okay. So yeah. Freud. Ernest Hemingway. Mars, Pluto. It's a square. It's not very tight, but I just, there's different types. So thought I'd throw that in there. And then Mars in the first house, Pluto's death, right? He kills himself in the end, but Pluto's in Gemini, so that, as a for a writer, MC Pluto, powerful writer, Neptune, South Node, all in Gemini. Um, but yeah, Pluto, Mars square Pluto, Mars in the first. Let's see, where's Mercury? Mercury's in the 12th. Yeah, it's not very creative, especially in Leo, but sad, very sad that he went that way. But Mars square Pluto is definitely going to add to the power and drive. Scarjo, Scorpio, very deeply scorpionic. Um, and what was her so she was in the Marvel what is she? Black Widow or something like that. I don't know. She fights. Um, yeah, she's a fighter. So she's got to have something in her chart that, you know, obviously the Scorpio, tons of Scorpio with Pluto and Scorpio, then square Mars, right? Pluto square Mars. Mars is in the second, but conjunct the third cusp. So, um, still relating to, and I mean, she's not like a fighter. Well, I don't know. Maybe she is a fighter in real life. Maybe she does. But her thing is she's an actress, but she plays many different roles, some of which are kind of, like fighting, fighting, fighty. Um, she got a lot in the 12th, first, second house. Mars ruling a 12th cusp and the 5th cusp, entertainment. Carl Jung, also like Sigmund Freud, has the Mars in conjunct Pluto. His Mars is stationary. That's powerful. Mars stationary in conjunct Pluto. So again, this Mars is not the ascendant lord here. Let's see, Saturn is. Saturn's here. Saturn's in the first. But and Saturn's square Pluto. And lightly sextile Mars. See Mars ruling the MC and the third house, so the intellect. Yeah, but again, so like that psychotherapy, um, I don't mean to suggest this is the only aspect that could indicate that, but the inconjunct, especially because it brings out the sixth, eighth quality element, right? And so here, Pluto is sixth from Mars. Mars is eighth from Pluto. So yeah, it's that unequal relationships. That's like the psychologist and the client type relationship. Kafka. He wrote he was an author. He wrote The Metamorphosis, the man who turns into a giant bug. He wrote a bunch of other stuff. Um, Cancer, Sun, Jupiter, Gemini, Stellium. Holy Gemini, Stellium. Oh my gosh. Right. Uh, yeah. But Mars. So Mars is in between. So Ceres is in between Mars and Pluto. But I just thought I'd throw that in there. Talk about Pluto transformation, right? To the Mars, to the whole Gemini stellium, including Mercury, Venus, Saturn, Moon, Chiron. All right. But yeah, really interesting stuff here. He also wrote a story about a person who made a living fasting, like, and he was like a circus performer, and he would just like fast for that's all he was good at, and he would just like fast for like extended periods of time until he starves himself to death. Yeah, because that's all he could do is like, what's the end result of like, when you're the only thing you can do is not eat. Well, you end up starving yourself. It's like deep, dark craziness. Look at this square too. Mercury, Venus, square Uranus. Mercury's in Gemini, and so it's dignifying his Uranus in the second. That's really interesting. Very extreme aesthetic quality he had. Bruce Lee, right? Muhammad Ali, Bruce Lee, Pluto, square Mars, right? So this is not, and this is such an exact one, and Mars is in Scorpio, conjunct Venus. So Venus, remember Venus and Mars together, um, allowing that physicality to go much further than it can on its own, because Venus is like the cold water on the thing that's like, constantly heating itself up. So like the Venus is cooling it down so it can keep exercising. Like if you go to a gym, you feel like achy and like you're working out and like you do too much and your body's like, ugh, like we need to rest. Like that Venus will help protect that for that person. So they can go work out much more than the average person and they can be okay because that Venus is going to soften that kind of Mars. But the Pluto is definitely driving it deep, 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 obsessive, right? Pluto and Leo, Mars and Scorpio. Ooh, deep, intense, and very, very like um very scorpionic. It's also 12th house, so bringing in the this quality, almost like spiritual, etheric, esoteric, sixth sense about things. So he's bringing in like the invisible to the physical and the fight, martial arts, physical arts, martial arts. It's very Mars in 12th house. Sophie Marceau, she's very beautiful actress, French actress, and she got it right on the ascendant. Pluto, Mars, Uranus, Virgo. So it's really influencing her face. So she's very iconic kind of figure, especially for her face. But look at this chart. Look at the harmony here. Beautiful. I mean, moon's in Capricorn, very scorpionic, Scorpio stellium, but beautiful harmony here. But this makes her very intense, very powerful, just as a figure person. Paul McCartney. Okay, Mars, Pluto, conjunct. Mars ruling the third house and the eighth. So for the third house, skills of the hands, right? Not only that, I think he's left-handed. Like so he did his guitar backwards, so like that's Pluto, transformational, but like very obsessive about it. Very powerful, uh, yeah, deep, highly creative. Most of the creativity of the Beatles came from Paul McCartney. Like he could write a song, play it, record it, and be done with it all before like the other band members even knew what happened. There's like, oh, you did it all yourself. Like, wait for us, come on, Paul. So he was highly, highly creative, way more than John Lennon. I mean, John Lennon was creative, but Paul McCartney was more the creative genius of the Beatles and the Leo, and then Gemini skills as well. George Michael, Mars, Pluto in the third, almost the fourth, right? But expression, and then Uranus is here too, Virgo, right? So like his expression is going to be very powerful, dynamic, physical, sexual, right? Pluto, right? Right. Remember that movie? Like it's funny, he gave off this persona, this image of being like a highly sexualized male attracted to women, even though he's gay. But remember, he did that video with all the supermodels, right? And like it's highly sexual. Anyway, yeah, interesting. Mars is square Venus, so that's interesting. And then Pluto also transformational. Transformer. No, he's not a transformer. Nicki Minaj. Exact. Pluto, square Mars. Right? And do we really need to belabor this one? I don't think so. Everyone could see it from a mile away. Just the intensity, right? The aggression, the passion. Mars ruling the third. So expression, um, communication, and MC. 12th, creative, highly creative. Gwyneth Paltrow. I'm not such a fan of Gwyneth Paltrow, and for the life of me, I can't figure out why she would call her magazine Goop, because I think that's just like destroyed it. Like, who wants Goop? Like, why don't you just name it Diarrhea? Name your magazine Diarrhea. Name your magazine Crap. Name your magazine Shit. Right? Like, it's like, why would you call it Goop? Bad taste. Bad move, Gwyneth Paltrow. It's like your personal brand. You're just like shitting on your own personal brand. I'm sorry, but it's like, ugh. Who wants Goop? Like that was her. Am I wrong? Like, did I think that's what it was called. Anyway, not a good move. That's not why I dislike her. I don't dislike her. I just think she's not interesting. Just kind of boring. Very blasé. But anyway, this is out of sign, but Mars, Pluto, Sun, Pluto, Libra, Libra stellium, eighth house, Mars, Pluto. So there's something, I mean, yeah, there's something I mean, she's probably a very passionate person in many ways, especially in relationships. Um, but anyway, I don't know. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Diana, Princess of Wales, Mars, Pluto. Um, and she dies in a car accident. Cars are Mars very often, right? Maybe Mercury, but often Mars. Um, and this is in the ninth house. So yeah, end of the eighth, you could say eighth house. North node Uranus in the eighth. Uh, she dies in an accident, Uranus, but Mars, Pluto as well, similar. Um, but also for ideology, philosophy, belief system, it's going to be very powerful. Right? And so Mars is ruling the fourth and the 11th and 12th. Interesting. Um, yeah. Uh, yeah, from a young age, she was, had a very powerful um life. I mean, she married a prince, Prince Charles, who's now king. King Sausage Fingers is his name. That's not his real name. Obviously, I don't need to say that, but I don't know. Yeah, she was very passionate in everything she did. Passionately disbelieved the Queen Lizard and the lizard family. But yeah, long distance travel, ninth house, foreign and exotic groups, networks, family, not family, but like community, 11th house, powerful. Gordon Ramsay, this one's pretty interesting. Mr. Hell's Kitchen. Okay, what's the fourth house? Fourth house is real estate. Fourth house is brick and mortar. Fourth house can mean restaurants, right? Mars, Pluto, and Uranus and Moon in Virgo in the fourth house. Moving into the fifth house, so entertainment, fun, games, right? But clearly, um, uh, clearly pulling on the fourth. It's also the fourth whole sign house as well, right? So Hell's Kitchen, Pluto, Mars conjunct Pluto, and Uranus and Moon, right? I'm also Virgo Moon, so me and Gordon Ramsay are kind of similar, and you can see that when I start yelling. I have Scorpio rising, he has Gemini rising, I have Gemini Sun, he has Scorpio Sun, and then we both have Virgo Moon, so kind of got that similarity going on. Um, but yeah, Hell's Kitchen right here, but also the Scorpio. Trent Reznor. Here's another very obvious one. Mr. I wanna fuck you like an animal. Right? Mars, Pluto, Uranus, and Virgo in the eighth house. I mean, enough said. I think so. It's also square the nodes. Look at that. Look how intense that is. Right? It's amazing. Um, yeah, Uranus is stationary, and that's it's a very tight conjunction in the eighth house. And so yeah, when he's, aggressive sexuality, aggressive sexuality. Tony Robbins. I love Tony Robbins. I think he's a great guy. I do. I mean, I think he's genuine. He does really great things in real life. He's not full of shit. Like and he's he's an actual giant. Like he has gigantism. But he's got a giant personality to match. As Mercury's almost stationary, very, very slow, even though it's in Pisces. So it's okay. Like when a planet's in poor dignity and it's stationary or very close to stationary, it's quite powerful, right? Because now you're getting like the something very dynamic. It's balanced in an imbalanced sign. So it's quite unique. Very Piscean, big-minded, very big, compassionate man with the Saturn. Anyway, um, Mars. So Mars in conjunct Pluto by 1 degree. Right. So this Pluto, so it's creating like it's so also like Freud, Jung, Tony Robbins, Mars in conjunct Pluto. So he is a psychologist. Like he does stuff that psychologists can't do, right? Trained psychologists will be like, no, you can't cure a person of their phobia in an hour. And Tony Robbins will be like, really? Watch me. He'll just do it. Like, literally do it for real. Like, so yeah, he's pretty impressive. And he's fed like a billion people. I don't know how many, like so many people. And he's like ultra rich too. So he's pretty neat. Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Again, that Mars Venus for that physicality, right? I think it was Muhammad Ali, Bruce Lee, The Rock, right? And then also for the competitiveness, Mars square Pluto. It's a little wide, so it's not as strong. So you're not going to get like Bruce Lee level or even Muhammad Ali level of obsessiveness, but he was a fighter. Wrestling, not as you know, there's an element of fakeness to pro wrestling, but there's still it's not nothing. It's not like they're just not hitting each other. They're just taking it easy. They're just being, as far as I know, right? What do I know? But yeah, Pluto in the 12th, Mars in the ninth. Similar configuration to I think Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali both. But yeah, interesting. It definitely derives that kind of quality. I don't like The Rock as much. I mean, I don't think he's as genuine. I don't think he gives a shit. I think he's full of shit, honestly. That's my opinion. I think he's a rich asshole. Whatever. He's allowed to be, I guess. Bruce Springsteen, the boss. Now, if you grew up in Philly or Jersey like I did in the 80s and 90s, Bruce Springsteen was like a god to many people. Not me. Like I didn't give a shit. I was more of a punk rocker, metalhead, but um to many people he was. So anyway. Mars conjunct Pluto and Leo in the third. So expression. So he's a guitar player, singer, songwriter, right? Uh, yeah. Um, yeah, it's just gonna make it, very intense. Leo's very creative, very passionate, aggressive, and he has that edge. His songs are a little bit edgy. Not really. They're very radio friendly, but they have like a little bit of power to them, grit and strength. Okay, and Sting. So he's got Pluto, Mars in Leo in the first, right? And he's known for this kind of raw sexuality, right? There's even like this myth, this lore, this legend about Sting, about how he can just like make love for hours and, like, okay, I don't know if it's real or not real, but maybe, whatever. I don't care. But yeah, he just has that quality, this kind of like very strong sexuality. And it's interesting that there is that mythology about him, whether it's true or not. It's very interesting. And he's great. I mean, I think he's a great musician. A lot of people do. Margaret Thatcher. She's got that Saturn right in the ascendant, Saturn and Scorpio. Ooh, she's scary. Uh, let's see. Mars, Pluto. It's a little wide, but I left it in there. Yeah, I mean, this is not a very strong one, but it's still there. Mars square Pluto, and it's like Mars in Libra, so it's not in good dignity. Pluto's in Cancer. I mean, Mars and it's still Mars square Pluto. Well, you know, she's very strong, but a lot of that's coming from Saturn and Scorpio on the ascendant. Yeah, just throwing that in there. Tina Turner. This chart is so messy, so all over the place, right? And she did have like she had amazing talent, amazing singing career, right? But probably a lot of difficulties, a lot of troubles, and in the end, what's interesting is that she turned to Hindu spirituality, right? And she made like these chanting albums before she died. So that's really fascinating. Pluto in the 12th, Pluto in conjunct Mars, right? So I don't know if she had this like kind of psychology therapy kind of thing like the other guys, but maybe she did. Maybe as a friend, she was like, the one to turn to because she could psychologize you. But let's see here. Um, so yeah, Mars in the eighth, Pluto's in the sixth. Yeah, same as the others from each other respectively. So and then Mars in Pisces. She probably was very, so yeah. And so Mars in Pisces, Pluto's a transformer, right? And so Jupiter is also in Pisces. So she turned to that Eastern spirituality, which is interesting. So Mars ruling the ninth, also philosophy, religion, beliefs, and the fourth, right? So the fourth is probably troublesome. There's probably some issues with abuse, right? Especially because of the inconjunct is, that somebody is like overpowering, potentially. Um, but anyway, her her belief system transformed. Oprah Winfrey. Here's another one, like Hillary. She hides it well, but she's not like this nice, sweet lady who's just wants to help everyone. No. Mars is in Scorpio. Mars is ruling the fourth house. What do we know about Oprah and land? What happened in Hawaii? Anyone want to take a guess? Her and The Rock. These freaking rich assholes want to burn the natives because they won't sell their land. I know it's like we don't even want to think. We don't even want like nobody wants to admit that's real and that's what happened. But it's not just her. It's like her and Rock and all the other rich assholes. They're just like, you know, that wasn't an organic thing, right? That was not just something that just happened, you know, act of God or whatever. That was man-made, unfortunately. So, I mean, Mars ruling the fourth in Scorpio, square Pluto when it's super tight, 1 degree. It's yeah, deeply, deeply driven. It's tied into Chiron in the North Node. Interesting. In the first. Um, yeah. No way do I trust Oprah Winfrey. She was friends with John of God, who was another one who was like like a pedophile, rapist, right? He was calls himself John of God and he's trafficking women and children. She's friends with him. She's friends with Weinstein. I don't know if she was friends with Epstein either, but she probably was. No way is Oprah Winfrey a good guy. She goes to like Haiti and like Africa and then like all of a sudden all these children are missing. All these children were missing in Hawaii after the fires. They traffic children, these people. These are Satanists. Why do I gonna lie? I'm gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Malcolm X. Mars, Pluto in Cancer in the seventh. This one's really interesting because yeah, Mars is not in good dignity here. Um, Pluto, arguably, I don't know. don't know if Pluto's in good dignity or poor dignity in Cancer, but similarly, I mean, Mars probably drags it down anyway. Um, and especially in his early life, he was a criminal, right? So we see that in the seventh house. We see that in the eighth house also. A petty criminal. It's Mars in Cancer. It's going to be violent, sexual. It's just not. It's not. There's no integrity there, right? And so and then the Pluto is going to be very obsessive, driven, and also like this is great for sort of um manipulating people, swindling, right? It's not really above boards with the Cancer, but definitely. But as he gets older, he becomes more of a man, and he's got ascendant Lord Saturn in the it's in Scorpio, which is also lends itself to crime, but and a more mature side of things, it's Saturn's leadership. It's in the 10th house. Jupiter's in the first. Not great dignity, but he does transform his views, his philosophy over time, and becomes more of a stand-up leader. And then also interesting, um, he gets killed by others, right? So like this Mars and Pluto together, it's kind of violent, this combination. Um, so interesting. And that's it. That is all of it. So I went through it pretty quickly, but I think it was good. So this did not take too long. Um, but I think I gave enough good examples so that you could really kind of see how Mars and Pluto work together. They they may not always appear outwardly as like this intense drive, but believe me, like they will be there. The person who has that will be deeply, deeply driven to do things. All right. My father had it, so I kind of know it like on a personal level what that was like. He had the square, um, extremely driven, right? Obsessive. Um, so all these people are too, right? Some it's more obvious, some it's not, but they're all going to have that. So anyway, guys, that was Mars and Pluto in hard aspect. Hope you like it. Hit that like button, subscribe, share, book a reading with me. And leave a comment down below if you feel like it. And I will see you again soon. Mediocre astrologer signing off. Man, he's okay. And I hope you guys are okay too. Laugh it off. Take a victory laugh. Win before you win. I'll see you guys again soon. All right, thanks. Bye.